Hi, folks. This is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report. You know, every body of water in our area is really affected right now by the changeable weather and what that does to the water. I was talking to Jigger Jim on Black Lake, and Jim works at the log cabin, so he's a great source of information. He not only is an avid fisherman, he fishes Black Lake whenever he can, but he also is talking to people that come into that store. They'll ask him questions as where do we go to fish? What are they hitting? And they'll come in bragging about their catches and tell him. So he has a vast source of information to pass on. And he says right now that the weather is affecting the spring fishing in Black Lake. It's all about water temperature is everything. He said the crappie fishing was wonderful here just a short period ago before all this changeable weather hit. The water temperature was in the 60s, and the fish had moved into the 2 to 4 foot range on rocky bottoms where they spawn. He said he had wonderful crappie fishing at that point, but now with all the cold winds that have taken place, the water temperatures got much colder. It's down in the 50s, which normally is a hot button, but after being in the 60s, this is a downward trend. And so now these crappies have moved out. He said they're almost like staging in 10 feet of water, waiting for the temperature to go up so they can continue the spawn. Now that 10 feet, they could be suspended 10 feet down in 20 feet of water. The point of it is they're right now in this interrupted period. And for all of you that wanted to catch crappies, it shouldn't be long. Once that temperature goes up again, they should move into you want to look for the 2 to 4 foot depths along the shoreline. It's usually a tremendous area to go to. The other thing I said to Jim, I said, so Jim, how has the northern pike fishing been? Because Black Lake has a tremendous natural resource of northern pike, and fishermen come from all over the east to fish northern pike in Black Lake, especially from Pennsylvania. He just smiled. He said, it's excellent. I said, tell me why. He says, what I'm going to tell you, you're not going to believe. He says, it's about color. And he says, you won't believe this. I said, try me. I said, what color is it, Jim? He said, well, I'm learning the hard way. I was out with my buddy, and he literally was beating me unbelievable. He said, I was using my favorite bait, which is an orange Mep spinner. That's Jim's favorite bait to catch northern pike on Black Lake. But the magic color right now, he says, is pink. He says, I've never heard of it before. I said, Jim, pink has been the hot color for me for ages. He said, why didn't you ever tell me? I said, because I didn't know it years ago. I only discovered this a few years ago. But he said, anything that's pink right now is so, it just catches everything. He said, if there was a pink spinnerbait, and I'm going to tell you there is, Terminator makes an all-pink spinnerbait with pink blades and pink skirts. And that's highly effective for northern pike, for bass as well. He said his son was using a chatterbait, a white chatterbait. He says, I don't think they make pink in chatterbait. I says, they do. I'm pretty sure that Z-Man makes one now. He said, anyway, Seth would take a grass pig, which is it's a traditional lure I've talked about for years. My buddy Rust and Melissa, they both use grass pigs for muskies. But they make grass pigs in pink. And anyway, I guess they had some in the store. And Seth took a grass pig and took his knife and sort of whittled it down in size so it fit into the chatterbait he had. And he started catching a lot of fish too. So this is a combination you should be aware of. Anything pink. And, of course, I use pink bucktail jigs, and they've been the best thing for me this spring as well. In the past, orange was always my favorite springtime color, and apparently is Jim's too. But he said the orange wasn't working as well. The other thing I said to Jim, I said, can you tell me about the walleye fishing? He said, well, the walleye fishing in Black Lake seems to be almost non-existent. He said, I wouldn't have said this a couple years ago. He said, because that's always been my specialty growing up on Oneida Lake is walleyes. And he said, but the times we've been out for walleyes this spring, I haven't seen a one. He says, now, it's not the same on the St. Lawrence River. They're killing them on the St. Lawrence. That's what the guys coming into the log cabins have told him. They're coming in and they're trolling for walleyes. He said, it's hard to fish a jig in the heavy current of the St. Lawrence River. He says you can catch them doing that, but he says it's much easier with that current to troll. And that's how most people, he said, are catching their walleyes right now. He said the walleyes have all spawned now. He said those that have run up the Oswegatchie River in Ogdensburg, he said only the males are there now. The small males will hold on and stay in that water for a while. He said you can catch a lot of those, but they're probably not going to be big enough to keep. So anyway, that's the information from Black Lake. Black Lake is a wonderful body of water because you can go there and you can catch anything. I said, tell me something. I said, tell me something, Jim. I said, Jim, tell me, are people catching bass? He says, of course, they're catching bass all the time. He says, it's impossible to go out there and use any of these lures and not catch bass. He says, here's the thing, though, since it's illegal to catch and release, he says, here's what he believes the law to be. If you're anchored in a spot and you catch 2 bass in a row, then he said you have to leave, and you can come back later, but you have to leave. You can't stay in one position and whatever you're using catch bass and be legal. He says if they see you doing that, they'll come and either give you a warning or a ticket or something. You know, it's something that so many of us don't really understand, this whole thing where bass, it's non-existent to catch and release bass during this period of time. That's the law in our area, and I think most people are really unaware of what that all means. But the fishing right now is excellent on Black Lake. Just remember that the water temperature controls everything, according to Jim. He said, I'm not a biologist. This is just my opinion on this as I watch and listen to everybody telling me what they're doing. So my advice to all of you listening is if you want someplace to go and catch crappies, Black Lake is the premier. And this is a good time to do it, as long as you can find the 2 to 4 foot range where they will be spawning. Until next time, folks, this is Don Meissner with the North Country Fishing Report.